Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to the zone and welcome back to Psych2go. And this one should be interesting. It's how porn addiction damages your brain. And okay, how do I what's the most appropriate way I could possibly start this? Apart from, I remember when I was about 20 years old, I actually started. I think I read for like at least an hour a book on sexual politics and how there are certain aspects of like masculinity and femininity about how they are sort of like how they are showcased in porn, and also about how like what the connection is between viewer and those taking part. And I even read at some point that they said that the vagina is an inverted penis, and they seem to think that, among other things, this book seemed to suggest is the idea is that when you see a woman being, fucked on camera, it brings to mind the idea that inwardly it's affecting her, and it's showcased absolutely in her face, whether it's pain or pleasure. It's blatant and it's completely showcased in a person's expression. And they even said the same thing about men, is that any man with any sort of erection whatsoever is letting out a very, very clear signal. And it's whether you want to say, whether you want to go into the details about, certain chemicals that affect people's brains, and, endorphins that get released, and that sort of thing. It's a bit graphic, and it's a bit like hard to explain for the purposes of just keeping this video up at all. But the thing is that that's only really applicable to those who are on screen. What it does to those who view it is a very different matter, for reasons I'm pretty sure they'll list off before long. So let's get to it, shall we?
Porn addiction. It's expensive, it's time-consuming, and it's more common than you think. About 40 million US adults reported visiting porn sites on a regular basis, and sites like Pornhub get billions of visits per year. So it's no wonder that porn addiction is a growing phenomenon. Not only that, but various research studies show that it has detrimental effects on brain function. So let's get right into the ways porn addiction damages your brain.
Even the depictions with the fruit right there are actually really interesting, because I even remember a couple of days ago, it's among other things, it alters your perception about how you view women generally, and even sets an unprecedented, because realistically, if you're like watching porn on a daily basis, you're probably accustomed to seeing very, very attractive, very, very particularly presented women with any particular curvature whatsoever. If you view that just through the eyes of a screen, through the process clicks in the mind of people that even though you're watching it, they're still probably thousands of miles away. When you actually see women out in the streets, or just on a daily basis, your mind begins to like waver back and forth about what your own perceptions of attractiveness are. And this could even possibly, I'm not too sure if it's the sort of thing that affects, like, if women have that sort of a same idea, because that's the thing about it. It's that, is it a thing that is specifically tailored to how men view women and not how women view men? Because it's hard to say just what, like, porn addiction is from the perspective of a woman, because that's like one of the things where I legitimately can't give any sort of good answer for. The best I could possibly say is that I don't even know how I can answer that. That's like really, really strange, and I wouldn't even know where to begin to ask about something like that, because, okay, so I don't know if it's like okay. I'm just gonna go forward.
Here's your brain. This is what your
Who are
brain
you?
looks like. And this is your brain on porn. Not to sound like a corny 90s PSA, but these are actual brain scans that show just how much excessive porn usage alters
Wait,
your
really?
brain structure and reward system. In fact, porn is so potent that it can damage and rewire your brain in the exact same way drug addiction would. Here's how it works. Pornography triggers the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure and reward in the brain. Over time, repeated exposure to pornography activates delta FOSB, a molecule that regulates the reward system in your brain and accumulates when you engage in any addictive behavior.
Okay, okay, I agree with that. They've got me there. Is that again, when you're exposed to that sort of material, you also have to bear in mind is that it's almost like once you've seen one woman being fucked or you see two people fucking, then you've basically seen it all, and and then gradually over time, when you begin to realize what if we had this person and this person, and they went at it and stuff like that, it brings to mind, ladies and gentlemen, about how again the multiple different subgenres and the sort of kinks that people have towards that sort of thing, and when it's just all over the internet, it means that they've basically had to do no work whatsoever to see an experience, basically, let's call it that. And basically that starts to stagnate and it becomes less special, and all of a sudden you're just watching it for the sake of just watching it. You're not trying to gain anything from it. It's just, you know what I mean?
This molecule basically acts like an electric switch in the brain and creates new neural pathways in response to overstimulation, aka dopamine release, from watching porn. The more exposure to porn, the more this switch goes off, making it extremely difficult to quit the addiction because your brain is now wired to crave it constantly, the same way a person may crave a McDonald's cheeseburger or a hit of cocaine. Not in that particular order. If you notice that your urge for porn is persistent and even uncontrollable, it may be time to speak to a mental health professional. Negative impact on relationships. If you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of pornography sites at least once in your life, you probably know that there's a tremendous array of NSFW content beyond any person's wildest imagination. It's no wonder why real-life sexual experiences and partners may have some trouble competing with
That's
the
like, okay, yeah, it's not that I didn't think about that. Is the idea is that when you actually participate, it's a very, very anticlimactic experience. But it also brings to mind about, like I said, the thing about attraction is that, well, how it's is it again? It's attractiveness standards, whether or not you develop an addiction before you got into a relationship, or did you just develop it during it because you began to realize that you're not really attracted. But then that's the other thing as well, is that why exactly would you even bother keep watching porn if you had a partner, anybody anyway? I wouldn't know because I've never been in a relationship myself, but why on earth would you even contemplate watching porn again after this when you're in a relationship? I don't know if this is just thinking about it or whether or not it's just different times and all that, but I wouldn't think about that. That's just like rude because, again, it sets a precedent in people's minds that they're watching somebody getting fucked and somebody is getting pleasure out of it from the perspective of the viewer. And from her point of view, is that why would she even contemplate staying if that's, he's more interested in her or whoever it may be. It's a complicated affair, but it's something that I'm kind of a little bit puzzled about how we even got to here, and he's still,
billions of porn images and videos available to the masses.
And again,
as
this legitimately might be something that affects men more than it affects women, which I don't even know if that's fair or that's just too accurate, but you get the idea.
Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman puts it, there is good data to support the idea that if your brain learns to be aroused by watching other people have sex, it is not necessarily going to carry over to the ability to get aroused when you're one-on-one with somebody else. Research shows that porn addiction can negatively impact a person's ability to feel sexually satisfied with their partner due to desensitization, and can even distort their view of intimacy. Here's the quick science lesson. The more porn you consume, the more you develop a tolerance for it, which causes you to crave more of it to feel stimulated due to a shift in brain chemicals. Once this tolerance in your brain is established and dopamine reaches its peak, it becomes increasingly difficult to feel sexually satisfied with anything or anyone. Sexual dysfunction. Speaking of never being satisfied, have you ever spent hours relentlessly doom scrolling through porn websites until nothing you see arouses your interest? No pun intended. You may feel as though you've seen it all and that you're just used to porn, right? Well, it could actually be a sign of sexual dysfunction. In a study published in the journal Military Medicine, men between the ages of 20 and 40 were evaluated using a questionnaire called the International Index of Erectile Function. Participants were asked to answer questions on their levels of orgasmic function, sexual desire, and overall sexual satisfaction. The study found that rates of erectile dysfunction in men were higher in participants who preferred or chose pornography over having real-life sex with their partner. This data supports the growing theory that desensitization in the brain from porn addiction is highly correlated with reduced sexual satisfaction and desire overall. Make sure to consult a doctor if you believe you're experiencing symptoms of sexual dysfunction, since there can be various underlying causes at play. It can alter decision-making.
Also, the only thing I wanted to add about the thing about sexual dysfunction is that it doesn't just go away if you decide to stop watching porn for a month. It's also something that doesn't just go away because you try and do different things or you try and participate in different things. Sexual dysfunction, ladies and gentlemen, means that you almost just... Because, okay, there are times when you just straight up are not in the mood for something. I've been there. Thousands of people have been there. Sometimes, do you ever have the feeling when you know fine well you're not hungry, but you eat anyway, just for the sake of it? And that, again, sometimes literally not having it is... You'll fare completely fine afterwards. That's the sort of thing that makes porn so addictive, is that it's not so much going into withdrawal, but it falls under the line of, again, dissatisfaction, and which could almost make things like sexual dysfunction even worse, because if, let's say, you try and hold out for about 4 days and then you return to it, and, well, once it's over and done with, do you really feel any better? Has it improved your life? Was it worth it? I mean, yes, life is hard, and we all need a little something to release the valve a little bit, but does that really make any difference? It's strange, ladies and gentlemen, because, again, I can understand why, but you also have to understand is that it's not a, one pump chump guarantee for any level of satisfaction anyway. I was going to actually also make a point about this phenomenon called No Nut November, because that too sets like a very important discourse about how people who work with porn or who are very, very experienced in the understanding of it, some people will openly encourage people to nut and basically to fornicate more money for some people's affections and attention. I've seen it done before, and it's something that's probably not going to change. It's probably even going to escalate even further, because people instead, you call it do not stop nut November or something like that. There's lots of things out there that seem to suggest, a marketing strategy of some kind.
We just mentioned isn't bad enough. Porn addiction is powerful enough to trickle down in other areas of your life and can even cause you to make impulsive decisions. Research from the University of Texas Department of Neurosurgery shows that desensitization from porn addiction is also associated with diminished activity in your brain's reward circuit. Partly due to developing a tolerance to dopamine, the study evaluated that addicts show decreased cellular activity in the orbitofrontal cortex, an area of the brain that is responsible for helping us make strategic rather than impulsive decisions. You heard that right. Porn can literally diminish your capability of making sound and rational decisions, the way any other life-destroying addiction would. If you or someone is struggling from addiction, check out the links in the description for resources and services that can help. So, what do you guys think? Did you learn anything new about porn addiction from watching this video? If so, sound off in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching and have an amazing day.
There is sort of like, excuse me for getting into a bit of a rant here for 1 second, because there's something I really kind of like want to say, because I feel like it would be extremely curtailed if I just straight up did not make a point about this. And I'll just come out with it and say this, that one of the bigger issues as well that maybe porn addiction has sort of escalated throughout at least this period of the 21st century is that I would say almost and it's something of almost a dissatisfaction amongst, well, absolutely amongst men. It's the idea that what they said before about 40 million Americans who say they visit porn sites either daily or very, very regularly, is that some men will feel completely cut off from contact with women. And this point needs elaborating. Is that specifically men who are porn addicts, who are addicted to porn, are cut off from women in the first place, because even, again, possibly my own naivety about how many women are addicted to porn as well might be something I don't quite have the answers to. But as I said in the last video, I think, truthfully, there are very few women at that sort of level of society. In fact, one could almost say that actually, once again, just like in the last video, below a certain level, society is entirely male. Also, you have to understand is the idea that if anybody just straight up said that they had a porn addiction and it was something that they were what's the thing I'm trying to get at is that the majority of people on Earth are mostly working class people who are not filthy stinking rich is the point I'm trying to make. If we can agree on that, then that's fair enough. So not everybody is going to have the satisfaction or the privilege or the luxury of having things to either subjugate them and relieve them from the stresses of life. And this can also apply to things like gambling, to drug addiction, to whatever, any sort of stimulant, anything to take their minds off the harsh realities of life. And remember, one of the harsh realities of life for some men is that whether they're on a living wage, whether they're on a minimum wage, whether they earn £50 an hour, whether they earn £100 an hour, there are some people who literally are just sort of out there, who are single, and even though they try hard as they can to actually form meaningful relationships, it seems almost the commitment and the thought that they would have to be relieved of their sort of their deposits with porn sites and stuff like that is the sort of thing that people shudder against, because life may not be tolerable. Life sometimes might not be nearly that great, and when it even comes to things like, again, some people are absolutely fine with being single anyway, and they have no quarter arsenal given about just being on porn sites, because they just want to use it anyway. Because again, if they're single and they're perfectly fine with this anyway, then that's that. But what about the people who are legitimately desperate to get away from this, to who are meaningfully, who openly want to be in a relationship? But the issue with that, ladies and gentlemen, is that that's a different subject entirely. Because, well, some person might literally say, and I'll certainly say, is that what exactly do you want to be in a relationship for? Do you feel as though it's like just because you want to be? Is it because you just sort of feel as though that's your you reach that point in your life where you feel like settling down and you want to like start a family or something like that? But it was a really strange thing as well, because again, I'm in the crowd of I'm perfectly fine with being single. And it's not that I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of being in a relationship, but I'm also again openly conscious of the idea of it's not I would want to meet somebody who I had very legitimate feelings for, and somebody who hopefully, reciprocated in that generosity and was open with me just as much as I was with them. So far so good, you may say. But I also hate the fact, ladies and gentlemen, is that television as well seems openly they seem open and oblivious to the idea that sex sells. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the idea of sex selling is it's blip and it's completely incorrect. Sex does not sell. Porn sells. Sex does not sell. Sex is the difference between whether you're male, female, non-binary, bi, transgender. Those are the sort of things that, well, it could be, gender or anything, but you get the idea. That's not what that sort of thing does not sell. Because you'll never see, a Next advert with, people wearing, colors of the transgender flag of dresses, and then you hear people and they have those stupid soundtracks of more, more, more. How do you like me? How do you like me? More, more, more. Available for only $24.99 and Marks and Spencer's, each sold separately. Batteries not included. So yeah, you were not going to get anything like that. I mention this because there came an advert earlier today about Love Island All Stars, which is one of those programs that seems almost explicitly designed to tailor towards the small percent in society who are super attractive, who boast about how many people who follow them on social media, either for their talents, mostly for their looks. But again, that idea might be. But the problem is again, that's the sort of president people think is absolutely normal, and they're creating a fantasy of escapism, and that's the sort of same rabbit hole porn has. It's an escape from life. It's an escape from reality. It's an escape from the idea that there'll be people who participate in porn who are fully aware that some people who watch may not be the most, ideal of characters, either physically or any other capacity. But you know what? They are still human beings, and even those who are very deeply affected by porn addiction, I should say that it is only the result and not the cause that their addictions have led them so far from the straight and narrow. Maybe not the best way to have put that either, but you get the idea. And then there comes a really interesting point, and something I've always wanted to put this as well. You think this is bad just from the perspective of those who just watch it. What about the people who take part in it? I mean, again, this is something that I never really thought about bringing up before, but what about the people who do this daily? What about the people who, have to basically drop their drawers every single day, do it for such and such, and then get paid afterwards? And this is what they do, and basically the whole world is watching them. And I could break out the old that's somebody's daughter or that's somebody's son and something like that. I could always break that sort of line out, but no, it's not really like why on earth would their parents be watching their own kids get? I would not even know where to begin with that. Like, that's just that's fucked up. That is. Now, of course, immediately one thing you will be saying immediately is that some people literally make more money in, like, say 90 minutes through like a live stream on OnlyFans than probably I've made in the last 6 weeks. That alone is a very, very, some people think that's an extremely good motivation to get into porn anyway. Not to watch it, but to actually get paid for it. Because I've heard some stories about people who get paid $2,500 for 60 minutes. I've heard stories about people who say, if you want to talk to me further, then pay up 40 bucks and we'll continue talking like this for the next 10 minutes. There are some people who go that far, and people who are willing to sacrifice their cold hard money just for some affection, some level of, like that, just having the courtesy of actually interacting with people and stuff like that. That is the price and the extent some people are absolutely willing to go. And what I think's like really, really bizarre, and something that actually kind of never really caught on, is the fact that people are fully well aware of this, and this is something that is becoming even more open, and people are, I'm not saying less shameless about it, but you can also pick apart the ideas that people will do it and just say, there we are, we're doing that anyway, because as long as, it makes us money. I mean, have you ever heard of this fiasco on Twitch where one woman got her breasts out and literally did not get banned, and other people started doing it? It's why on earth would they even like? Because again, if you face no consequences for that sort of thing, then and it makes you money, then it makes absolutely sense. Play into the minds of people who just sort of want to be involved in any which way. I feel as though there was like some other point I was trying to make to all this, because it's one of those things where even I'm uncertain about whether or not I've got like any sort of correct answer, or whether or not if I pursued this further, I would be really, really curtailed to say how is any of this possible. But again, like I said before, if there are some people willing, who are getting paid that much for just like an hour's worth of work, then that will probably suit some people down to the ground. Is that, again, they get paid that much, and that's all well and good. But again, what if the day comes when they sort of want to do something a bit different, and then all the rest falls into place? You know what I think's really strange, and I'll come to this, and I'm just gonna end this video with this, is that it's extremely interesting. I find the idea that it's not so much the addiction part of it, but it's rather, well, what do you suggest is going to happen when people stop? And do you think life just gets better immediately, or life gets better after 2 weeks or a month? Like, does life get better? It's the thing as well. Does life really get better even when you've stopped doing something? That's the question I want to ask. And like I said before, with so many people who do it, and some people who are perfectly fine with it and content about it, and who are believed to be in control, what's the issue? That's the thing I'm beginning to also find with a lot of these Psych2go videos, is that there's just as much to say against it as well. And there's so many things that I could say that I never really thought about before. It's very interesting how open I feel with all this. So anyway, I hope all of you guys have enjoyed this reaction video from Psych2go, and I cannot wait to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.